Good evening. My name's Tom Stoukas, coming to you live from Sarnia, Ontario, on this Saturday evening, May 10th. I, I hope everybody's having a nice night. And yeah, I've just been watching the news all day, and it's for some reason it's just like nothing's happening on the political front. Everybody seems to have taken the weekend off. It seems. I know Mark Carney's putting his government together, I suppose, and Pierre's probably they're all taking a break after the election. I get it, whatever. So yeah, haven't seen them at all on the news today. We're even on Twitter, so it seems just like a lazy weekend in Canadian politics, which is fine. I'm sure things. The only thing I worry about is when things are quiet, they don't stay quiet for long. So we'll see how. I'm sure things will heat up again soon. He's got his cabinet swearing in Tuesday, so I'm sure he's doing preparations for that. And who knows what else will pop up with the Americans or anything else. And yeah, Pierre probably just taking the weekend off. Doug Ford was around making some announcements today, saying how his government's going to support the auto industry with the tariff war and all that. And it's like, man, this guy, every time he opens his mouth, more plants close. Like, we lost 30,000 manufacturing jobs last month in Canada, probably a lot of them in Ontario. And I don't know, maybe we're going to lose them no matter what, but you know, his kind of grandstanding against Trump just because, it's popular wins him some votes in the short term. Tell that to the auto workers, who are out of a job. Maybe they would have lost their job regardless, but maybe not. But I've seen a few reports in the media of the carnage that could happen in the Canadian auto industry, like literally Ontario giving up on it after like decades. I don't know if that will happen, but it seems like it's almost a disaster in the making because, and of course under Ford, this is unfolded. Not the Liberals, Doug Ford, who's been premier. They gave billions of dollars to build electric battery plants and all that for electric vehicles. Then they put tariffs on cheap Chinese electric vehicles. And now we're in this tariff war with the U.S. Now, they're banking on their EV mandate, so everybody was going to be forced to drive a car, so they'd have to buy these batteries. So they justified putting billions into that, and now nobody wants to buy an electric car right this moment, or they're going to buy it when they're good and ready. So, like, the demand for the EV batteries, like a lot of these companies are going out of business, and they got all sorts of money from the government. So that's Ford's record so far with the auto industry. And like, what's he going to give them welfare when they lose their jobs? Is that his promise? So, I'm not an auto expert, but I wouldn't feel too safe if I was an auto worker with Doug Ford as premier. Well, we'll see. Maybe I'll pull it out. But I've seen some reports about like how Canada should give up on the autos. I don't know. but definitely we're gonna lose. Like Trump's tariffs are designed to lure businesses back to him, so it's gonna be hard for Ontario to keep all those ones. A lot of the companies will just say, you know what, it's easier for us to just manufacture there. So yeah, that's about it for on the international front. It was good. Cooler heads prevailed between India and Pakistan. They were close to full out war. Could have been really bad. A few nukes between some heavily populated areas would have been pretty nasty. And just, you know, the threat of the war was getting more real. And finally, they stepped in and called a ceasefire. It looks like the U.S. had a little, which they always do. I think the U.S. always comes in when they start fighting, and it's like they're the ref, and they come in. Okay, that's enough, and it gives them a chance to kind of back down without losing face. All that, but apparently they're like um, reports that the ceasefire is being violated by one side or the other. So you never know; it could break out again. But it might be just like the ceasefire just not taking quite hold right away. Um, so hopefully they don't nuke each other. Because it would have been bad, like if they would have nuked for Canada either way. Because if they would have nuked each other, obviously it would have poisoned the atmosphere and all that. But let's say they didn't go nuclear, but they just had some horrible war, and like tens of millions of people became refugees. Well, yeah, we'd probably get a few million here. So good thing they didn't totally kill each other. India, Pakistan. Every few years they get this. They get fight a little. They get a little disagreement. Gets a little too rowdy, and then they eventually back down. Every few years this happens. So yeah, good news there, I guess. Um, and not much in the headlines about Trump and Israel and his like weird departure from his, side by side solidarity with him, like that he was always talking about. Which is now there's reports that he's totally freezing out Netanyahu, and which I don't believe is he would recognize a Palestinian state without Hamas. Uh, Not confirmed reports, but I believe it when I see it. So not a lot happening there, but it could happen quick. So I think he's supposed to make a trip there soon to the Middle East. That would be crazy. I'm sure he'll have some big announcement saved for that. And that's it for me, from what I've seen. Oh, and the the woke right has been all over my timeline, and it's kind of taken over my brain because I didn't even know what it was. And I tried to block it and stuff, and it just brings out the worst in you because these people, I think, like these intellectuals, I'm sure they they have this way of trying to, I see them, they're intellectuals, and they don't like when peasants are thinking. In podcasts, they see podcasts as peasantry actually talking, like equivalent to the peasants talking in the tavern hundreds of years ago. And the podcasts have become unruly, and the king's not pleased. So guys like James Lindsay and Douglas Murray and Sam Harris and all sorts of intellectual people are making this woke right thing, trying to make this thing a thing. Constantine Kissin, that weird looking guy, and they want to make it a thing. And instead of calling out the behavior of certain individuals, not anonymous trolls on Twitter, but like actual individuals, and challenge their arguments, they want to cast a wide net and say everybody who thinks like this, they're woke and they're dangerous. And some of the words, psychopath, sadist, uh, um, all sorts of references to Lucifer, um, sadist, psychopath, like some mean Nazi. Yeah, Nazi, that's a good one. Woke, for me, that's a big insult because I I was fighting all the woke policies of the left wing lunatics. So to be called woke is like a very big insult, and I think it belongs to that crazy group. They deserve it. They earned it. Um, but yeah, these new guys, they're just gatekeepers for their masters. You know, they live the nice, they get the nice hotel rooms, and maybe they fly a little business class, and they do, as long as they do what they're told. I don't know. But it, I can't get away from it, and I wish it would just, I don't know why it's on my timeline all of a sudden. Is it trying to tell me something? Do I need to, my change? Am I becoming enticed by the Luciferin woke right masters calling me? I don't think so. But I'm just a peasant, so maybe we're not smart enough to think for ourselves. That's their main thing, is like they think, like for this Nick Fuentes guy, he gets people, he has quite a following with the young crowd. So he thinks if you listen to him, he's gonna brainwash you, and you're like, he thinks that's how these guys, what these guys think of people. They think they're that dumb that they're gonna listen to 1 2 minute clip of a guy and you know be can't think for themselves. There are some people that can't think for themselves, but that's on every basically section of society. There's always people that have no desire to think for themselves. So, but there are peasants who want to think for themselves and have like rational goals for themselves. We're not succumbing to the way they act is like we're succumbing to this lure and brainwashing of this psychopathic group that wants to turn the U.S. into a new Nazi state. You know, that's like sounds like a worst case scenario. I think like what are you gonna do? You're gonna dwell on the worst case scenario? I don't know, but they remind me of the left wing. They don't like the racist memes. Okay, whatever. And they don't like when you criticize Israel. They don't like when you don't want third world immigration. You don't want Canada to look like a third world country because of immigration. They criticize more and more of the things. So instead of just like a select group of total neo-Nazis that want to kill everybody who's not white, they want to paint everybody as woke right who doesn't agree with their liberal ideas. So it's like I can't be bothered by these people because I don't like anybody that censors people or wants to promote censorship or defends bombing children to bits and pieces. like whatever. Call me awoke for that, whatever, man. And I should apologize, I guess, to James for calling him names because he made me mad. I don't like people that are gatekeepers and shills and censors and look down on peasants, whatever. But I'll probably stop doing that now. But I still disagree. This guy, how come he's in my feed? Like literally every time I click on the damn thing, it's a new post by him. And for some reason, instead of not reading it, I have to read it, and he pisses me off, and then I have to say something. But not anymore. I've had my say, and we'll let the cards fall where they may. That's it. So yeah, we'll see next week. Tomorrow's Sunday. Tomorrow's Sunday, so I'm sure by Monday things will start speeding up on all sorts of fronts. Middle East, Ukraine, Russia, and of course the Canadian government is forming the new parliament. That's what I'm looking forward to seeing if they actually discuss anything meaningful and see if they ruin how much more they can ruin Canada. So that's coming up. All right. So let's look at the day quick. It wasn't much of a day. It's a lot of work today. And a lot of work tomorrow for Mother's Day. Okay. It's not my fault, James Lindsay, that my feed on X is full of all these hilarious, sometimes a little edgy memes. But I was growing up in the 80s, 70s, 80s, 90s, whatever. I was born in the mid 70s. And that was when the comedy was the most edgiest in the 70s and 80s. Oh my gosh. Whew. They couldn't say that stuff today. And they try to kill comedy. They tried killing comedy with the woke left commies like Obama and all the political correctness, all that, whatever. They killed comedy for a few years. It was shit. Look, lost its edge. Except for like very few. Like Norm Macdonald was one of them during the whole uh, political correct revolution. Norm Macdonald, he didn't change at all. So they want to kill comedy again, these woke right. Because, you can't have racist memes. Next thing you know, you can't have memes that offend this or that or this. Where does it all end, man? Yeah, she shouldn't be probably sharing the meme on your company, whatever, messenger, but whatever, man. Loosen up. All right. Let's look at the day that was here quick. Whatever, man. And another thing with this woke right is they're using, like, you can't even complain about, like, violence, all the violent incidents you see and see. It's the same thing as what happened with the left wing. It's censorship. If you don't agree with them, they find a reason to include you in their woke group. So here's a day that was very boring Saturday. First post, of course, Kanye was in the first poster. All right. This is an interesting post. Greg Wycliffe. As a free speech watchdog, Ye's new Heil Hitler song being banned on all streaming platforms is an important flashpoint. As much as right wingers will warn about cancel culture from the left, anti Semitic speech laws from the right are actually further along in being an immediate threat to the First Amendment rights. Yeah, so there's the woke right, the real woke right. You criticize Israel, they cancel you. Like, look at that rap group from Ireland or whatever. Kneecap. They got canceled, their visas, because they criticize Israel. How's that different? In Canada and other European countries, there's already anti-Semitism speech laws on the books. Digital censorship aside, Ye's new song is definitely illegal in Germany. Yeah, I don't think Ye's going to be making any trips to Germany anytime soon. It's potentially illegal in other countries because of specific laws around anti-Semitism, a term which notoriously has a loose definition. Again, with the woke right, one of their conditions of being in the woke right is that you hate Jews. So they can stretch that criticism of Israel right down to, or criticism of an official that happens to be Jewish, like let's say a defense official like Paul Wolfowitz, who's Jewish. They can link that, say, hey, well, you're anti-Semitic because he's Jewish, whatever. So that's the loose definition. You can loosen it, very loose. Hate the song, love the song, be offended, etc. That's kind of the point of good art. It's thought-provoking, boundary-pushing, and gets people talking. Well, it's definitely got people talking, I guess. We'll see this summer if all the kiddos play at the pool. They're not going to like that, the authorities. It's fascinating to see people condemn Ye's new track as if it exists in a vacuum and isn't worthy of artistic license. Art and songs graphically depicting murder, rape, and reducing women as sex objects get regular mainstream airtime, but Ye's new song must be banned because it uniquely offends someone's Jewish grandma. This is a wild standard to impose on free expression. Yeah, crazy stuff. That makes Jews feel unsafe. Well, they're not going to like the summer, man. They're going to have to listen to the cars or the boom boxes. Oh my God, it's going to be... He's definitely a promotion guy. Maybe not in the most lighting of ways, but he's... What about NWA's Fuck the Police? Does this not make police officers feel unsafe? The cops tried to ban that song. They hated that song. You can take the entire genre of gangster rap and find song after song specifically crafted to invoke fear and intimidation into listeners. But apparently all of that is fine unless it disturbs the historic sensibilities of someone's blah blah. Again, it's an absurd standard. Artists intentionally use offensive language and shocking imagery in their art is nothing new. Making art that upsets old people and makes them clutch their pearl necklaces is nothing new. Yeah. So, yeah. It's funny how they all banned him. Except for X. Ye and Elon were buddies, I think. I don't know if they're still buddies. Probably are. Probably not hanging out lately, but... Next post. U.S. to accept white South African refugees while other programs remain paused. I think it was like 50,000. But the implication on this headline by CTV is, they're taking in white refugees instead of other groups, i.e. people of color. And there's the question, the saying is like, what's wrong? There's nothing wrong with that. You know, why is it good for one group and not another? But the fact is their lives are in total danger. Like they could suffer total brutal death if they remain where they are. So there's that. Like it's an immediate threat, and also they have a very good reputation, the South African farmer. And I'm pretty sure they're not going to be they're going to get right involved, get into something once they get here. Like they're not going to be a burden on the state. So it's like there's no need to apologize for that. I thought that was a funny headline. That's all. I know what the implication is. Oh, it's like, yeah, bring them. That's what I said. Good idea. They're good farmers too. We could use them. If they want to kick them out and kill them, they could use them here. Why get the bottom of the barrel when you can get like some skilled farmers? Next post. Unspin the spin again. Okay. I don't know what that. All right. Let's start with education. Most Canadian parents have no idea what subjects like climate change have taken over core curriculum like geography. Nor do they understand the level that their children are being propagandized. Numbers law in the Canadian education system come from specious sources. Okay. So this caught my eye because I was driving in the car and just like driving, whatever, and somehow it came up that she said how driving's bad because the environment, and I was curious. I was like, did she learn this on YouTube? Because like, it's like that's a weird thing you learn for a young person, like under 10-year-old. So I asked, where'd you hear that about driving bad is bad for the planet and all this? And she said, no, my class. So it's like the grade 1 class is talking about global warming and climate change. So she's not being hyperbolic or whatever. Like it's totally happening. And I'm like, maybe you should just teach them how to do some math and some English and some spelling. And, it's crazy. We've got to do homeschooling soon. So yeah, it's a true story. And she said something else, like they're taught her about the burials, the Indians, the residential schools and all that. I was like, I'm not saying you should ignore that historical period at all. But what you should, grade 1's a little heavy stuff for the, maybe it's just me, I don't know. Especially with them, like they've got a very tilted agenda. Okay. Next post. I saw this post here about Conestoga College. Can truly Greg Brady sounds like the guy from the Brady Bunch. So scandalous behavior was at the top levels of Conestoga College the past 4 or 5 years. The school had upwards of $700 million in cash reserves. The average raise of those making $100,000 or more at the school has totaled 23% in the past 4 years. Now they're laying off many of those who make nowhere near that. It's outrageous, and not enough in powerful political positions are doing or saying anything about it. Yeah. So this college thing. We've seen this happen over the last 10 years. I live in Sarnia, and we have a Lambton College here. And I don't know if they're as bad as Conestoga, but the colleges in Ontario used to be, what they should have been, what they should be is places of like high standards where you kind of like get the hands-on training and skills and connections with the industry to like advance our economy. Like it should be like a almost like a feeder system into the economy, which is, you know, like for every, not just the Chemical Valley here in Sarnia, but in all sorts of industries and sections of society. Like that's what colleges should strive for. But in the last 10 years, they've gone, for some crazy reason, they've focused on international students, bringing them here, like going abroad and marketing their colleges to them, and basically turning their schools into cash cows, even banking them or farming them out to private colleges. Like, it's ridiculous. And they left all the detrimental things, like the negative things that bringing a large group of people bring, which is higher rents, healthcare, strain on the healthcare system, just social programs, all that. Food banks, you've seen a lot of students at food banks. So these guys are raking in the dough, these executives at the college. Meanwhile, the community is dealing with their mess, their decisions. And now they're laying off people because the government's people are seeing what kind of scam it is. But what they did was these colleges in Ontario, and I don't know how it is in other provinces, but in Ontario, they've really hurt their reputation. Like, instead of places of higher learning and place where you can actually build a career, it's more like a immigration processing center. That's what all they are. And now they're bust. So we'll see how that plays out. This is the main story I saw today with Canadian politics. NDP talking to Carney government about getting official party status, according to the interim leader, Davies, whatever. I don't even know his full name. So, you know what that means. But Carney's at what, like 169 seats? I heard he might have flipped a seat tonight in Quebec, like by one vote, which would be crazy. So that would give him like 170. So he's like 2 off. And now he's going to give these guys party status. You know they're going to vote for him on all the big stuff he wants. If he gives them party status, So they'll basically have a de facto. That's why I said Carney is going to have a de facto majority government taking shape. And so what that means is we won't have an election for a few years, like maybe like 4 years, or like the next, like legally allowed, like mandated. 4 years would be the mandated. Could happen earlier, but Carney is the kind of guy that does not want to campaign, and if he doesn't have to campaign, he's going to keep. If he can have a working majority, he won't go to. So what that means is he's banking on Canadians giving him like 3-4 years of leeway to do his thing. So Pierre's going to have to sit in the wilderness there for 3-4 years. And meanwhile, you got Doug Ford campaigning for his job. It's going to be crazy to see how that plays out. And they got the Rob Ford documentary coming out next month on Netflix. I'm going to watch it. I read the book Crazy Town by Robin Doolittle, and it was pretty good. And apparently Doug Ford is There's 4 siblings. Doug Ford is like the least messed up out of the 4, apparently. The other ones are really hard into the dope, like the hard dope. And Doug seemed to avoid all that, apparently. And he actually worked for his dad's company and didn't get into trouble with the law or anything. So out of the 4 siblings, he's the most responsible one. But so on this documentary, it'll probably be Rob be the focus, but he stretched the truth quite a few times, and but you know he'd say, "Oh, I was defending." You know, people would say he's defending his brother, which is, you know, he didn't have a choice, so whatever. So anyway, you got Doug Ford. It'll be interesting to see how it affects his image as he runs. How this documentary will affect Doug Ford's image as he runs for de facto runs for Pierre's job. That's what I was trying to say. Next, we were talking about Trump yesterday and now about this crazy shift in his policy, supposedly. Or it could be just bullshit, who knows. But this one post said, if Trump actually has the courage to turn on Israel, which I don't think it's what's happening. I think he's just trying to play tough. They will kill him. So yeah, she's probably right on that. And I don't say that to be anti-Jewish or anti-Israeli, because there is a precedent here. Yitzhak Rabin, who was a very nationalist leader. He wasn't like a peacenik. He was like a military guy in the Israeli army, and he became prime minister. And he did this deal with. He was committed to dealing with Arafat, and he was murdered. He was assassinated by an Israeli settler, and it was shocking, really. And so it shows. I'm not being hyperbolic about Trump or anti-Semitic. It's fact that there's people that will kill you if you try to bring some kind of settlement that they're not ready to accept. It's a fact, and Rabin proves that fact. So look at your history. Obviously, we do not want any of that to happen. Next post. Marty up north. To the assembly workers in Ontario that are scared that Trump will crush their auto sector. He will crush us if we don't bend. If we don't. I don't know what to. Anyway. To the assembly workers in Ontario that are scared that Trump will crush their auto sector. Now you know how Alberta's oil patch workers feel about Carney, Guilbeault, Blanchet, Ford, Jolie, Freeland. Yes, it could be a bad mixture. Disgruntled Alberta and disgruntled Ontario auto workers. Oy. It's going to be interesting to see how Carney can. I saw an article today by Dominic LeBlanc said interview that Carney's going to govern better than Trudeau when it comes to relations with the West, like Saskatchewan and Alberta. So we shall see if he. I'm sure he will. Like you really can't get much worse than Trudeau in his dealings with provinces. Like. He brought Western separatism ahead 20 years, just his presence. So I'm sure Carney can't. He obviously won't do any worse, but hopefully he can improve the lines of communication. And this is the thing today. I was talking last night here about Pakistan and India ready to nuke each other, and why not? Like, they hate each other, why not? And it doesn't, even if they didn't want to do it, it could be all it takes is one guy with a trigger finger, and boom, it sets off a chain reaction. So it was kind of nice seeing that Trump, Truth Social post, after a long night of talks mediated by the United States, I am pleased to announce that India and Pakistan have agreed to a full and immediate ceasefire. Congratulations to both countries on using common sense and great intelligence. Thank you for your attention to this matter. I love his tweets. I don't know why. They're hilarious. You know he writes these tweets. It may be someone's typing it and he's dictating, but it's his train of thought. It's hilarious. So, like I said the other day, usually after every few years, this flares up between these two. There's always talk there's going to be war, especially with the nukes they have. And then the U.S. comes in and says, all right, boys, settle down. Now, there has been reports that the ceasefire has been violated, but that's, still needs to be confirmed. Like, so far, it doesn't look like they're nuking each other, at least. That's good. And there's Doug Ford here, next post. His big mouth will destroy the auto industry in Ontario. He needs to stop talking and resign. So, yeah, we're basically, I don't know. I just don't have the sense that, like I said before, Doug Ford, I mean, he stepped back to let Carney handle the negotiations, but I just don't see him, like when Trump is eyeing a lot of Ontario manufacturing for American jobs. And I just don't see I don't see Doug Ford outsmarting Trump on this issue. That's all. I think. But anyway, he was with Ontario's auto mayors, so the mayors of auto towns, I guess, like Windsor and Oshawa. Today I met with Ontario's auto mayors to reaffirm our commitment to protect Ontario auto workers and their communities no matter what. We'll have their backs. So yeah, as the auto sector announces shutdown after shutdown, we'll see. We'll see if it gets worse or it cools off. Hopefully it cools off. But I wouldn't count on Doug Ford to fix it. But he looks like, the point of this is he looks like he's campaigning. Like he's been out to all these sorts of events. Like the guy just won. Guy just won a majority government. Literally. Like a strong majority. Yet he's campaigning like he's still, running for election. So obviously, I mean, if rumors are correct or true, he's gunning for Pierre. So, he's been doing these events nonstop lately. Just as Pierre is in limbo, political limbo with his by-election. So Doug Ford gets all the headlines, let's say. We'll see. Maybe he's happy as Ontario Premier. But yeah, we're screwed with Doug Ford. As a Premier of Ontario and as Prime Minister of Canada, I just never say never, right? But I just can't see it. I can't see it as him as being Prime Minister of Canada. I can't see it at all. But he thinks he can do it. He thought he wanted to be Premier for years, and everybody probably thought he was insane, and here he is, he's Premier. So we can't count that out. Next post, Alberta separatism. if Alberta ever separated, would you consider moving there? And I'd be like, yeah. Well, I lived in Alberta for a year, so beautiful place, beautiful country if it was, but I have a family in Alberta, so they can sponsor me because I'm sure Alberta will have strict immigration laws. All right. Here's touching on the next post. It's the woke right people saying, uh, if you're a nationalist, you're basically a Nazi. Never mind that the argument indicts national conservatives and MAGA and Trump and the vast majority of American rights as fascists, just like the communists and Groypers want. So basically, they're saying if you're a nationalist of any kind, you're woke right. And this kind of reminds me of this like toxic masculinity by the left wing. They pushed that for years and years. They said anything, manly is oppressive, patriarchal, whatever. And now they're doing the same with nationalism. It's like, oh, you're a Nazi if you even want your country to be based on what it was founded on, whatever. And you're all these horrible things. So it's like toxic nationalism. You can't be at all nationalist, or else you're a Nazi. And back to Alberta separatism here. Ferryman's toll. He's always making interesting points. He's talking about Alberta separatism. Why do you think Danielle Smith lowered the threshold for number of signatures needed on a petition to trigger a citizen-led referendum? And he says it's obvious. Smith isn't a separatist, but a separatist movement is going to give her leverage in negotiating with Ottawa. That's what I said too. It's the Quebec blueprint. Give it, use it as a way to extract what you want. She wants a referendum, so she lowers the threshold to allow for the referendum to occur, knowing that there won't be enough support for it to achieve anything. Yeah. Yeah. She's using the referendum, but she knows there's not enough support to get the super majority that they want. So, yeah, it's very obvious what's going on. And as much as people want separatism in Alberta, there's going to be so many people fighting tooth and nail against it. It's going to be so many hurdles for Alberta separatism to achieve what they want. But I'm sure they'll keep going. And then there's Dominic LeBlanc saying Carney will be a significant departure from Trudeau on policies relations with Alberta and Saskatchewan. So we talked about this earlier before the election, how one of the main things if Carney wins is he's got to kind of mend the relations with Alberta and Saskatchewan, and that looks like what he's aiming to do. Whether it works, that's another thing. And then, this video I saw today is horrible. It's this poor little kind of nerdy kid who's had to happen to be on the playground with a bunch of little black kids, and they beat that shit out of him. Very, very horrible. But the point is if it was the other way around, it would be George Floyd all over again. So, but apparently you can't notice stuff like this because then you'd be woke right if you notice the race aspect of it. So yeah, that's where woke right comes in. They try to hammer you everything you try to think with. Oh, woke right. So I want to see this video. It's a horrible video. I feel so bad for this kid. And I take my kid to the park all the time. I take my kids to the park all the time. And I guarantee if I saw something like this, regardless of race. If it was a bunch of white kids doing this to that kid, I would have been like, hey, man, none of that here, you know, as an adult, obviously, regardless of race. But it just happens it's a gang of black kids. All right. There's no outrage, though, from the media.
You want to come up behind me and kick me in the back?
No, so he got you bad. Oh, no, what's
So he tries to defend himself, and then he gets sucker punched and ganged up upon. And he can't fight. Look, he's bleeding. Poor kid. That's horrible. Anyway. Yeah. It's just horrible, man. Fucking animals, man. Like, that's, you can kill somebody. Bullying there. And then the final thing here tonight we're going to do is Danielle Smith. She's at a Sikh event and a Muslim event, and she's dressing up. And she's following the trend of Justin Trudeau, Pierre Poilievre, Doug Ford, Mark Carney, all of them. And you think, okay, what's the big deal? The big deal is stuff like this. What I said is, Greg Wycliffe said it's a mix between SNL and Black Mirror, which is true. Canada is a bizarre place. Destroyed place. So I said the dress-up routine for Canadian politicians is embarrassing and does nothing but promote sectarian political divisions. No wonder Canada has become a joke. So you would say, okay, oh, she's just being respectful, or Pierre's just being respectful, or Doug Ford's just being respectful. Okay, fine. How come I never see any U.S. congressmen or women or U.S. senators, very powerful people, or Donald Trump or any other world leaders dressing up like this on a regular basis? I don't see it. Unless they do it, and I'm sure I would see it on Twitter. We don't see it. And the reason is Canada is a political pandering machine now. And it's not good. So, yeah, you think, okay, don't make a big deal about the dress up. Well, it is kind of a big deal because there shouldn't be making people wear their stuff as a condition for support. Like, it's kind of weird. So, the ethnic pandering, not good. Not good. Not a good look. And yeah, I know they're going to vote for her. They go there, she wears the head thing, and they vote for her. That's how it works. But it's bad. It's a bad thing. But now, woke right. Criticizing immigration, criticizing this. Okay. See how woke right works? They say you're woke right, and then they call you all these names, and then they say, oh, we don't cancel. What do you think you're doing? You're toxifying anything that's associated with that. So if I'm criticizing her, it's like, oh. Anyway. Not very optimistic. Even for Alberta. The chances it's not looking good. And that's it. So we'll see you guys tomorrow night. Maybe something will happen big tomorrow. And then we'll go from there. See what hits the fan as our new government forms in Canada and our end game of globalist domination comes slowly in the next few years with Mark Carney as our prime minister. And so until tomorrow night, I'll see you guys and enjoy your night. I'll see you tomorrow night. Thank you.